Okay, well, I'm going to kick this off then. The regular monthly meeting, February 17th, 2020, of the Access Health Board of Directors will come to order. I'm Paul Philpott, the Vice Chair, and I'm serving as the presiding officer for this meeting. It is requested that participants introduce themselves every time they speak. Roll call votes will be taken for every action item. And at this point, I'd like Marson to take the roll.
Yes, Mr. Vice Chair. Charles Klippel. Paul Philpott.
Here.
DC Woods.
Here.
Thomas McNeil.
Here.
Brian Rader.
Here.
Victoria Veltri.
Here. Good morning.
Good morning. Steve Hernandez. Matthew Brackman.
Present.
Commissioner Gifford from DSS. Claudio Gualtieri on behalf of Secretary Melissa McCall from OPM. Tito Doolittle from OHA.
Here.
Thank you. Deputy Commissioner Colleen Harrington on behalf of Interim Commissioner Nancy Navarrete from DMS.
Here.
Thank you. Paul Lombardo on behalf of Commissioner Andrew Mays, Connecticut Insurance Department.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Manisha Tutani, Department of Public Health.
Here.
Thank you.
Steve Hernandez, through the chair, I'm here.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez.
Thank you. Thank you, Marson. The Vice Chair requests that the senior leadership team from Access Health introduce themselves.
Good morning. I'm James Michel, the CEO of Access Health Connecticut.
Good morning, everyone. Tony Crow, Chief Operating Officer, Access Health Connecticut.
Good morning, everybody. Daryl Jones, Director of Finance, Access Health Connecticut.
Good morning. Robert Blundo, Director of Technical Operations and Analytics.
Good morning, everyone. Susan Richby, Director of Legal and Governmental Affairs, Access Health Connecticut.
Good morning. Caroline Lee Ruette here, Director of Marketing at Access Health Connecticut.
Good morning. Dan Maloney, Director of Information Technology.
Good morning. John Carbone, Director of Shop and Product Development.
Good morning. Tammy Hendricks, Director of Health Equity and Outreach.
Good morning, everybody. Glenn Jurgen, Director, Human Resources, Access Health Connecticut.
Mr. Chairman, this concludes our introductions.
Thank you. I'm advised that there is no public comment this morning, so we'll move on to the first order of business, which is a review and approval of the minutes of the January 20th, 2020 regular meeting. Are there any questions or comments about the minutes? Hearing none, I'll accept the motion to approve.
So moved, Tom McNeil.
Seconded, CC.
Thank you. So Marson, will you take the vote, please?
Yes, Mr. Vice Chair. Charles Klippel. Paul Philpott.
Yes.
Claudio Gualtieri. Dietrich Gifford. Brian Rader.
Yes.
Steve Hernandez.
I vote yes.
Tito Doolittle.
Aye.
DC Woods.
Yes.
Thomas McNeil.
Yes.
Victoria Veltri.
Aye.
And Matthew Brackman.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. So the motion carries, and now I'll turn it over to James for the CEO report.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, all. I'm James Michel, CEO of Access Health Connecticut, and thank you for joining us today. We'll start our meeting with an update from Robert Blundo, Director of Technical Operations and Analytics. Rob has prepared a high-level review of the open enrollment report that was distributed to the board earlier this week. And Rob will also respond to some questions that were raised at the last meeting, and particularly by Mr. Brockman. Following Rob, we will hear from Tammy Hendricks, Director of Health Equity and Outreach. Tammy and her team have been working hard to launch the Broker Academy. As you know, Governor Lamont was very helpful in championing awareness of this new program and hosted a press conference last month. We are pleased to share that there are many community organizations that have reached out to support us by referring candidates, Many brokers are getting involved to mentor program participants, and applications are rolling in from the greater Bridgeport, Hartford, and New Haven regions. In addition to the Broker Academy, we are focused on the development of the subsidiary business plan and the Cover Connecticut program special enrollment period. Caroline Lee Ruette, Director of Marketing, will provide an update after Tammy. Caroline will review our marketing efforts to date to support Cover Connecticut. She will also share details about marketing the special enrollment period that will help eligible Connecticut residents continue to enroll in the program through June 30th, which was announced earlier that we were extending the special enrollment through June 30th. We will then hear from Susan Richby, Director of Legal and Government Affairs, for a policy update. Susan will update us about the status of legislative efforts to continue the expanded tax credits and enrollment across all of the exchanges for 2022, and updated guidelines on preventative services and funding to support enrollment in Medicaid and CHIP for children. As I close my opening remarks, I'd like to inform the board about a few upcoming developments over the next several months. First, we will be sending out the 2021 annual report this week, so expect it in the mail over the next several days. Additionally, we will have a proposed budget for fiscal year 2023 to share with you in April. We will work with the Finance Committee before we bring it to the full board for a vote. This budget will include a request to increase the assessment rate for additional funding to support a requirement passed by the state legislature last June for Access Health Connecticut to fund the all-player claims database at the Office of Health Strategies, starting in 2022 with assessment funds. Therefore, the FY 2023 budget will require an increase of assessment to meet this requirement. My final comments are this is give me a little bit of privilege to talk about this. The resilience and commitment of our staff, our board, our partners, vendors, and most importantly, our customers are helping us to weather a challenging time. As we proceed together each day, we are very mindful of the essential importance of balance and strong mental health. The encouraging spirit at the heart of Access Health's core values is more vital than ever during such a defining period. Thank you for your attention this morning and your continued opportunity to collaborate in service of a healthier Connecticut. I will pause now for any questions. Thank you.
James,
Yes, sir.
just real quick, this is just my 2 cents on the assessment rate.
Yes, sir.
When you get around to doing that next meeting, I guess, or whenever you do it, could you include a comparison to the other states, the other exchanges? Because the last time I checked, our assessment rate was low compared to a lot of these other exchanges. So
right.
It might provide some cover.
Absolutely, Paul. It most certainly is. This would be the very first increase that we are requesting since we started assessment. I believe in most cases, as you know, the FFM assess the states that they provide services for. I believe we are even lower than them. Sometimes we are half of what they charge in other states. So we're in pretty good shape. Yeah. And whatever the increase is, Paul, it's going to be negligible at most. Okay. Because right now we are working with the Office of Health Strategies to figure exactly how much money they need. Yep. Then that'll be incorporated into our budget, and that'll reflect the increase. But we don't anticipate it's going to be a big increase at all. Right now we're at 1.65 of the assessment is 1.65 of net premiums for small group, individual, and dental. So we don't believe it's going to be a big factor, in any factor at all. But however, as you know, Paul, we are working also on a look back of our assessment dollars over the last since we started assessing to show you the trend. Yeah, it's been going down. We know why it's been going down. I think you and I have talked about this. The right. Shift in the small group from fully insured to self-funding plans. and that is having an impact on us. So we have been adjusting our budget accordingly. They become more efficient, using our technology to make us more efficient, so we're able to absorb the reduction in revenues. And that's how we've been able to keep the assessment lower. But however, we may have to start finding ways to, especially a new expense like this.
Okay. Yep. Thank you very much, James. Is there anybody else that wants to have a comment or observation on that subject? Okay.
We have Vicky.
Paul, I can,
Okay, Vicky,
I can
yeah.
chime in. Yeah, this was as a result of the state budget, and it's actually in the budget. And it's a very limited amount, and it's capped based on a
Okay.
contract that we have to provide the services. So I don't think there's going to be a major impact at all, but the teams are communicating as we speak, I think, about the actual amount, so we can get an MOA done and get the funds.
Well, it sounds like you guys are doing all the downfield blocking anyway, so.
Exactly, we're doing the
Yeah.
tech. Yeah.
Good.
I hate
Great.
to use a football analogy, the Super Bowl's over, but that's it.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to switch to some spring sports analogies now, right? Okay, with that, I'd like to call on Rob Blundo for the open enrollment final report.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So following up on our last board meeting, we had gone through some of the hot off the presses results from this past 2022 open enrollment period. As we've done for the past 5 or 6 years now, what we've done is we've put together a more detailed report of the open enrollment results. This is the site. It's available publicly for both board members as well as general public to take advantage of. This report is vital for a variety of reasons, but what it does is, because it's a snapshot at every single year, this allows us to look back in time and see how we did at the end of each open enrollment period. We're able to use it in the community as folks come to us and ask questions. We're able to say, here's this 50 to 60 page report of, all the metrics you might be interested in related to a variety of topics, including the marketplace overview, how our profiles of our customers in the QHP plans as well as Husky look, our acquisition retention results, the plans that were selected, as well as the pricing impact on a year-by-year basis. So with that said, that is out there. It's available for consumption. And as always, if there are any questions related to that from anyone on the board or anyone in the community who's looking at it, we're always available to dive deeper and drill into anything that might be needed in case someone has questions. On that note, we also received a question, 2 questions actually, in our last board meeting regarding the acquisition results at a community level, as well as the attrition results or the attrition rates for individuals who were declining financial help. So as a follow-up to those questions, we've actually added 2 new exhibits to that annual report, and I'd actually like to just cover those right now as a follow-up. So thank you for those questions. Let's dive right in. So on this next slide, you'll see this. This is essentially, there's actually 2 exhibits of this. If you go into the detailed report, there's a view of this at an overall community level or the overall state level. We've also now stratified it by just the acquisition. So at the top, you'll just see it at, what we do is we cut this by 3 different views. One is county level, another one is the cities. And this would be available if you want all the cities, we're happy to share that. But we also have a heat map of this at the zip code level as well, so you can actually drill into a deeper level of it. What I will say is this, if you were to compare this to the overall distribution of enrollment, this is highly aligned. In fact, when you look at it by the zip code level, you'd be hard pressed to find major differences from a heat perspective or a density perspective. I think what we find is from an acquisition perspective, this is heavily weighted based on where the populations in Connecticut live. In terms of enrollment. In addition to that, the top 10 cities, as well as a comparison to prior years, all remain fairly aligned. There's no major differences that we saw. And the one thing I will note on this is that this does not include acquisition for the Husky plan. This only includes acquisition for the QHP plan. That doesn't mean we can't break it out. And if that's helpful for the board, we're happy to break that out. But I did want to call that out, as that certainly could be tied because of program eligibility and it being tied to mostly income. That will also impact some of the results as we start to think about outreach, focus on outreach, and where the acquisition is actually aligning. So let me pause there. Unfortunately, nothing too remarkable to say about this, but I will pause in case there's any other questions on it. See one question coming through, actually two.
May I ask my question?
Certainly.
Okay, thank you. So this is very interesting data. What I was curious about is, do you have any sense of eligibles to enroll versus enrollment? So how does this match up in that regard?
Certainly. So let me, to make sure I understand the question, I think the question is referring to essentially a conversion rate between folks who determine eligibility and those who actually complete enrollment after they're determined eligible. Do I have that correct?
No, I think that's maybe that's the problem, is maybe we don't know that number. I'm really going more for, like, when I look at these numbers, and maybe some of my question is a distinction between Husky and QHV, as you're saying, but maybe we don't know how many people could be eligible to sign up to figure out, because to me, when I look at top 10 cities and I see that Stamford is very high, that's great. It just seems to me like New Haven must have a whole lot more people who might be eligible and are not signing up. So is there a way to access that type of number or not?
Yeah, totally understand the question now. I appreciate that. Two notes on that. First, we do have a map that's actually interactive, and it's pretty cool. I would actually recommend this. Actually predates Commissioner. This predates you joining our board. But what we did in the summertime was we had released a health equity focused page on our website, and one of the things we released on that was really a focus on a variety of metrics that really tried to drill into health equity. We use data wrapper maps, which are these, they're much nicer than the one you see snapshotted here, which are these heat maps that we drill down to not only at the zip code level, but also at the census tract level, which shows a variety of metrics, including race, ethnicity, and language distributions. It shows some census-based metrics, which show communities that are in need based on a variety of composite measures. And in addition to that, we also broke it out based off of the uninsured rate, based off the latest census data that's available at that time frame in that census tract level, which was 2020. So with that said, what we do is that map is available for public consumption. We can certainly review that. In addition to that, though, we use that for outreach planning as well, for the communities in which there are darker shades, meaning that there is a higher proportion of uninsured to the population. That does flow into our planning for when we try to determine where are we going to have enrollment events, navigator coordination, as well as enrollment locations.
Thank you.
Commissioner, I think that if we were to incorporate the Husky enrollments in this map, you'll probably see a big shift. New Haven would probably shift to the top. But this is strictly QHP, so that may be driving the gap between what we expect and what we're seeing.
Thank you.
I think Matthew.
No, my sort of line of thinking was on the same line as the commissioners as to how does this match up with our potential customer base or our customer, and if it's possible to get those Husky numbers included. But I'd also encourage, and this is more on the outreach side, whatever they're doing in Stamford and Bridgeport, this cycle appeared to work. And I wonder if it's at some point during the outreach discussion, we talk a little bit about what worked in Stamford and Bridgeport that we can then replicate in New London and Eastern Connecticut, where it seems like there's a struggle there.
So Matthew, as you know, Ted is the chair of the Health Equity and Outreach Committee, the newly reformed committee. We met with Ted earlier this week, and we will be working directly with them to develop specific strategies around outreach. As we all know, every city and town is so unique unto themselves, so we have to develop very targeted outreach efforts. As Robbie indicated, we have data that tells us exactly who lives there and what their customs are and what the languages are. So this is an effort we continuously work to improve. How do we do outreach? So now we have a team, that's all they do.
Yeah.
So more to come on that. As we develop the strategy working through the Health Equity and Outreach Committee, we will come back to the board with a very detailed approach on what we're doing. And we do look at what's working one place, may not work in another part of the state. So we do, we work with a lot of local organizations, through our local organizations, to do outreach directly into the communities. But we will get back to you in detail. Mr. Chair, I think Ted has a question. Oh.
Please, Ted.
Oh, thanks. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for that information. I would just note that I know that Stamford has a particularly robust outreach effort led by Stamford Hospital on the vaccine side. I'm not sure if that has bled over perhaps to some enrollment work as well, but that is a situation that's driven by a particularly engaged, large, healthcare provider in that community.
Yeah, and Ted, I'll pile on to that. I think as we cut this a few different ways, I'm hearing the request loud and clear. So we'll certainly cut this by Husky. I would actually recommend one of the other things we can do to really try to parse out if there are communities that are doing something really effectively is we can break this out at a per capita level as well. So I think if we do that, we can adjust for the fact that maybe some of this is just, the more people in an area, the more likely they are to enroll. If let's say 5% of the population in Connecticut is enrolled in a QHP plan or whatever that rate is, it just might be a function of that. So I think the biggest challenge as I look at this is how to actually pick the outliers in the most appropriate way. Now that I'm hearing the need clearly, we can take another pass at that, and we'll certainly, whether it's in one of the subcommittees or as a follow-up, we're looking forward to sharing that.
Thank you. That'd be great.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other hands raised. If not, we'll continue the second question. So the second question revolved around one of the commentary that was made in the last board meeting, which was we had shown an exhibit that had shown how many enrollees are currently selecting the responsive no to this financial help gating question that we have. One of the things we had mentioned was that particularly in the post-ARPA world, but even pre-ARPA, our suspicions were that many customers assume that they will not qualify for financial help, when in fact they do. We'd seen this in focus groups, and our concern is that what can we do from a technology perspective? What can we do from an outreach perspective to make sure that folks understand the implications of this question? As a reminder, if you answer no to this question, you will not be determined eligible for Husky. You will not be determined eligible for premium tax credits. So the impact of that question is pretty substantial. Where we currently stand is, as a reminder, is we have about 12,700 enrollees who have responded to that question as no. So anecdotally speaking, I do know some individuals on the exchange that were picking up policies in between jobs, and they said no just because they figured I only need coverage for about a month or two just to get gap coverage between my existing job and my next employment, which will have coverage. But again, the question is, we don't know what percentage of customers actually fall into that. And the question is what if individuals are not understanding the importance of that question, or again, making that assumption? So to dive into that, we've cut this out two different ways. And this is in response to one of the questions, which was, can we actually analyze the attrition rate for that population? What I've done here is I've broken this out into two different views. One is to answer the attrition question, and the other one is to look at for individuals who actually did switch that financial help gating question from no to yes. What was the impact and what were they eligible for? So starting off with the attrition, there was 1,300 individuals who actually termed their plan or got their plan canceled during the open enrollment period who had their financial help question set to no. This is not materially different from the attrition rate of those who have their financial health questions set to yes. So the attrition rate is roughly the same. In fact, it's actually a little bit more favorable for those who say no. However, what I will say is that the reasons for attrition are substantially different. And to be fair, the reason for attrition will be slightly skewed because these individuals, if you don't answer yes, you can't automatically qualify for Husky. But it's still a big enough difference. So I'll dive into that. What I mean by that is, of the individuals who did lose coverage during open enrollment or term coverage, 70% of them were active cancellations, which is about 30 percentage points higher than the group who answers yes. The group who answers yes is spread out much more evenly across these reasons between active cancellation. If they did not actively renew, that means their policy actually turns. They just didn't take action to continue coverage into the next year. And then we have the other two attrition reasons, which are they're aging out, likely eligible for Medicare, or they've enrolled in Husky. So the active cancellation is someone's actually taken an activity. They've called our call center or they've disenrolled themselves manually from coverage. And I think that leaves us with some questions. I think there's some of this may be related to the anecdotal experiences I've had with consumers who are saying like, look, this is simply gap coverage until I get to my next employment. But my concern is also, what if that is also related to the fact that maybe folks are canceling it because it's simply too expensive for them to afford, or they found a different alternative that may not necessarily be a better replacement for a QHP plan. So there's still some investigation or research needs to be done. I have a few ideas on how we could pursue that. Switching gears to what if someone did switch their response? So if you remember, we did modify our screen. We were trying to make this screen with this financial health question more literate, more explicit in terms of informing individuals if they select no, what is the impact? We had about 1,800 enrollees switch their answer from no to yes during the open enrollment period. And of those 1,800, 6% of them actually did qualify for premium tax credits and cost sharing. 80% of them qualified for premium tax credits. And just going back to the attrition chart, of the folks who attritioned, this certainly isn't a bad thing. We don't look at this as a negative attrition reason. About 8% of those 1,300 or 9% of those 1,300 actually qualified for a Husky plan as well. So in looking at this, I think part of our suspicion that, look, maybe these folks don't realize that they'll actually qualify for financial help is warranted. I think it is valid. So where this leaves us is really two areas. First is, from a technology perspective, we're going to continue to improve that screen that has that financial health question. We've got a couple of ideas on how we can make it even more literate, more explicit, and clear. In addition to that, as we progress into this special enrollment period, we will be conducting an outreach campaign to these individuals to make it clear, the importance of that question. And our goal is to look at individuals in their community and give them an example of, your neighbors have X amount of dollars that they've saved by, requesting coverage. Something that's kind of put in I'll leave it to the spin meisters on the team here who do this far better than I do. But the key here will be, how do we cue this up in a clear way where we try to break down potentially if there is that assumption that, I make too much or my income is too high, how do we break that down? So I'm looking forward to conducting that campaign and working with the folks on our team to conduct that, as well as sharing those results with the team. Let me pause there. I think that's it from my end. If there's any questions, I'm happy to address those.
Questions for Rob? Okay.
Yeah, hi.
Oh,
Rob,
go ahead. Sorry.
This is Grant. I'm a little concerned that your method for deciding whether somebody's eligible, you said eligible for Husky, but really the requirement is that they have to use Husky, is based on a question that they can answer no to. Isn't there a requirement that if their income is below a certain level, they are not eligible for Access Health and they have to use Husky? Or have I got that wrong?
This financial gating question, this is not an Access Health question. This is a question that is, to my knowledge, it's required through the Affordable Care Act, and it's a required question in the application for us to be able to determine eligibility, as well as be able to distribute premium tax credit dollars. If an individual selects no to that question, they bypass all of the income requirement questions as well as a host of other questions that are required for determination of eligibility. So it is valuable in the sense that, you know, if you're a consumer who's looking for just 1 month of coverage, let's say, and if you're a consumer who's, let's say, very high income, it can cut your application time down by roughly half, if not more. But that comes with the risk, again, of the fact that, you know, we really need to make sure that folks, you know, it may not necessarily be in their best interest to try to determine that early on, but we'd love to get them through the application and let them know fully.
So, hey, Rob, Vicky, can you talk, share with the board what happens if somebody clicks no?
So in the event that someone clicks no, they will have a very similar application flow experience to other consumers who select yes. The only difference will be, I don't know off the top of my head how many application questions there are, and it'll vary based on how you answer questions on the application. But
Well, Bob, Rob, I was thinking about the message that they get from us before they could proceed.
I got you, James. So in the event that someone selects no, they will have a pop-up that appears, and it'll remind them. It'll say essentially something to the effect of, "Are you sure you want to select no? If you select no, you will not qualify for financial help to pay for your premiums and your plan." And I don't have it verbatim, but it's something to that effect where we try to lay it out in the clearest way possible that they will not be determined eligible for Husky or premium tax credits.
So it's not a hard stop, but it's a warning. It's a pretty in-your-face warning.
There's 2 warnings on the actual screen next to yes and no. There's actual text that says, you know, if it says yes, it's like, I want to qualify for financial help. If it says no, it says, I don't want any financial help or any assistance with my health coverage. And then if they still select no, then the pop-up comes up. So we've tried to do it twice in 2 ways in a very simple, as simple as possible, at least message.
Let me just pop in to say, to be like direct on Grant's question about Husky, you don't have to take Husky, even though you're eligible for Husky. You can say no, but you won't get tax credits to help you buy the Husky plan. So it's either you go into Husky or you can get an Access Health plan. You say no to Husky, but you will not get the advanced premium tax credits.
It's all or nothing for Husky.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking of the scenario, and this is probably a non-existent person, but I'm thinking of the person that might be a college student or something, or maybe they're just out of college, and the parent's going to pay for their health care, but the parent does not want their child on Medicaid. Stigma, you know, sort of like the parent is just like, I'm just don't want my kid on Medicaid. But I will pay the small premium, even though it's full pay, since it's only a 22-year-old or something. I will pay for that kid for a bronze plan or something like that. I'm just wondering, the kid really is not eligible for HCA. That's the kicker. There's actually some called gap problem down in the South, but people don't qualify for Access Health, but they don't qualify for Husky because the income level for their Medicaid, state Medicaid program is so low. So they're not eligible for anything. And that's been a problem since the beginning of the HCA. But I'm thinking more in Connecticut, it's more like a kid just out of college. And I guess the parent's eligible to sign. I mean, I guess the kid is eligible, 22-year-old, low income, eligible to sign up for full pay Access Health, even though their income isn't high enough.
But, you know, Grant, there's always the option of them staying on their parents' plan as well.
Well, yeah, I know that they're eligible up to what, 26 now or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, okay, it would be a 27-year-old. But yeah, you're right. As I said, it might be a non-existent case, but I'm just kind of curious. We don't have any guard that somebody with income too low is signing up for Access Health. Okay. It's the federal question, as Rob said. So I guess we're we're held harmless.
Okay, Grant, thanks for the question. Any others for Rob? Okay, there being none, I'm going to call on Tammy Hendricks for the Health Equity and Outreach update. Tammy?
Good morning, everyone. Again, Tammy Hendricks, Director of Health Equity and Outreach. I look forward to providing an outreach update, hopefully at the next board meeting. We really are rethinking the way we do outreach this year more than ever, based on need, based on what worked previously, what we can do differently, based on the data that we're getting from Rob and his team. So more to come on that. But for today, I have some updates on the Broker Academy. You know, as you know, we continue to promote and recruit for the program. So the online application has been live for about 3 weeks now. We've received 62 candidate applications so far, which is very exciting. We've also had about 20 broker agencies reach out to participate in the mentorship portion of the program, which is also great. You know, it's really important that we find agencies in the right locations that can give these students some much needed hands-on training. Moving on to training, we've secured a quote from a training vendor. We are now working on a contract. Again, this vendor will be providing all the training and materials for the students. So training is still set to start in June. This includes a 3-day in-person training class, and the remainder of the program will be virtual. But for the first day, we're really planning for an orientation type day. So we'll dedicate half the day to guest speakers to come in and speak with the students. We plan on inviting, you know, all 3 carriers, OHA, and probably include some other guest speakers, but planning continues for that. Moving into the marketing. The marketing team is fully engaged. We've sent out 2 separate newsletters to both the broker community to participate in mentorship and to our community partners. These emails were sent to over 3,000 contacts. And of course, outreach continues to organizations and partners, from presentations to following up on questions that are coming through the email. Our team is very, very busy. Really just, you know, continuing to connect with organizations, giving them updates as well as dropping off materials. And the outreach team is also doing presentations to promote the academy as well. So collectively, including our navigators, we've done almost 30 presentations in January, including a presentation to the city officials in Bridgeport. So we are planning for an additional 31 presentations over the next 2 months. And our team is we've also scheduled 6 information sessions that consumers can join, ask questions, and get more information about the program. But we are also working on scheduling time with the Hartford, Bridgeport, New Haven, and the DC General Assemblies and delegations. So we know that was a request from the last meeting that is in the work, and we are reaching out to them. Finally, for this slide, we have set up implementation teams to execute each part of the project plan. So getting these teams together, really staff from different departments, not only gets all the staff involved, but it also allows for fresh eyes on the project plan as well. So all those teams are in place, actively working on each part of the project plan. So we're making a lot of progress. We're continuing to get great support from the community, from different individuals. So we move forward with that. Any questions on the updates?
So, Tammy, it looks like we're going to start taking applications, what, early March?
Yeah, so we've actually already started taking applications. So the reason why the candidate recruitment is at a different time frame than the community outreach recruitment, we really wanted to get community organizations involved. So that's been our main focus. But then come closer to the start of the program, we will be reaching out to candidates more directly. So more tabling events at maybe community colleges trying to do more job fairs. But these the January and February were really dedicated to engaging the communities first to help us get recruits.
Great. Well, I know there are a lot of us that are very excited about this program, very supportive. So I know that maybe there'll be more data by the next board meeting, and hopefully you'll keep us up to date.
Of course.
Any other questions for Tammy? There being none, I'm going to call on Caroline Lee Ruett for the marketing update. Caroline?
We have one more slide. I'm
sorry.
You're already so tired of hearing about me.
Well, you know what? I jumped to that next slide. That's where I got my question from. My bad. Sorry.
Okay, no problems. This is a slide you've all seen before. I just wanted to put it up as a reminder for the program timeline. We have a lot of moving parts here, especially now that we have the 6 implementation teams, really 2 teams working on each phase of the programs. Right now we are still in the recruitment phase, again, engaging with community organizations and the broker community. We've been doing a lot of presentations. As things begin to open up, we're doing more in-person events as well. And just a side note, we will be at the Greater New Haven Chamber Career Fair today. They have a list of about 350 people RSVP'd, so it'll be a really great turnout. We are tabling an event there. We'll continue to be on the lookout for more events to promote the program to organizations, community partners. We have a great flow of applicants so far. So as recruitment continues, I think we'll be on track for hitting our target number of students. And as we accept the students, we'll keep them engaged until the start of training. So that's it for updates for now. And if you have any other questions, I know we're all set.
Okay, any questions for Tammy? All right.
Thank you.
There being none, I'm going to call on Caroline for the marketing update.
Good morning, everyone. Caroline Lee Ruett here, Director of Marketing for Access Health Connecticut. It's a pleasure to see everyone and have the opportunity to engage you in what's new for the Covered Connecticut program from a marketing perspective. As James previously mentioned, you all should know that we are conducting a special enrollment period for folks who are eligible in Connecticut to continue enrolling in this program through June 30th. So what you see in front of you right now is just a high-level visual of some of the continued things that we're doing to connect with our target audience here in Connecticut, given that we have this special enrollment period. So we'll get a little bit more into some elements that are updated into our toolkit in case there are folks here that want to help share this information and champion the message and opportunity. But on the left, you see a one-pager. This is a great high-level visual, has the income guidelines, right, for the federal poverty levels to help people understand, and all of the eligibility criteria, along with the hotline phone number. So if anybody wants to use that, I'll talk a little later about how you can get your hands on that. We also issued a press release this week, English and Spanish, to let folks know. So I am starting to see a little media pick up on that, but we are working with our vendor partner to make sure that we are connecting with the local reporters to help get some news stories on this and make sure that it's top of mind in communities across the state. And then on the right-hand side, it's just a visual of some of the direct mailers that continue to go out towards our target audience, right? Those folks that are in our database. So we'll dive a little bit deeper into where we've been and where we're going with this program on the next slide, please. All right, so this is an eye chart at this point in time, but this is the updated Gantt chart, right, on where we've been, where we are and where we're going with different tactics. I'm really just going to narrow in on what's in orange on the left-hand side, but ultimately we are updating our website content with that new deadline, right, to make sure that folks see the new opportunities available to them to continue enrolling. That also means that we're updating our organic and paid social media. So, you know, we are making sure that we're engaging with folks who follow us on social media, our channels, but there's also folks who might be eligible that don't follow us, right? And we want to get in front of them on social media channels too. We know that's working for us. especially as we continue in these COVID times, right? Digital platforms are providing really to be the best way for us to get in front of people by and large. So we are supporting the program with an additional spend on social channels. To that end, we do have an updated toolkit, right? We know that our legislative partners really like that, our community partners, probably some of you on this call find that useful, I hope. And so we are in the process of updating that with new collateral, suggested social media posts, including visuals. That will be available on our site early next week, and we will be sending out emails directing people to that toolkit. In the interim, if you would like that flyer, that one pager that was on the left-hand side of the previous slide, please feel free to get in touch with me and I will send that out to you so that you can use that sooner than later if you'd like to get started with that. Happy to make that available to you.
So, hey, why don't we send it to the whole board?
Sure, yeah.
All right, send it to the whole board.
Will do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. And we'll continue on with our press strategy as well, right? Sending out press releases as we hit key milestones here. And then that direct mail piece, right? That's so important. We spent a lot of time talking about that. We're hitting that audience again of about 7,200 folks with the direct mail piece, and then following up with email and text messaging. If we have that information from folks and that they have given us the permission or consent to communicate with them on those channels. So we're doing a little bit of mass media, right, with social media and press releases, but we're also working in this direct to consumer effort as well for folks who may qualify for the program. And just a reminder, how we're running that special enrollment period right now that goes through June 30th is folks can call a hotline. So they're calling directly into folks at Access Health CT who know a lot about the Covered Connecticut program to make it as efficient as possible. And at that hotline number, folks can, understand their eligibility and actually enroll as well. So that's a good overview, of where we've been and how we continue to pivot and evolve to support this program. And I will take questions.
Awesome. So any questions for Caroline?
So Paul, it's Vicki, and thank you, Caroline, for the update. Really appreciate it. And for the announcement of the special enrollment, which we will try to assist as much as possible to get the word out about, because I think it's great that we're going to extend the enrollment. Very welcome news. And thank you, James, for suggesting the board getting the materials. I know Claudio and I have been talking, and that one pager is really helpful and really concise and looks good and is easier to understand maybe than some of the other materials we have. But this information is very helpful to us too for communicating to legislative partners, et cetera, all the activity that's been undertaken to promote the program. So whatever you got, please feel free to share and ship over. But very much appreciate the work you're doing to get the word out.
Very good. Additional questions? There being none, then I'd like to call on Susan Richby for a ACA and legal update.
Thank you, Paul, and hi, everybody. First, I'd like to start with just mentioning, as I talked about previously, HHS had put out their proposed notice of benefit and payment parameters for plan year 2023. We did file comments at the end of January, and a copy of those comments was included with your board materials. So if anyone has any questions, just feel free to let me know. So for today, I have 4 topics to update everybody on. First, we'll touch on the extension of the enhanced ACA subsidies, top of mind for everybody. As you know, the Build Back Better Act was passed by the House in November, but this version of the bill will not be passed by the Senate, based on everything we know at this time. But a renewal of the enhanced ACA subsidies is crucial for the Democrats. If the subsidies don't continue into 2023, consumers will see renewals with much higher premium amounts at the same time as the midterm elections in November of this year. So this is really important. Senator Manchin has stated that he does support the premium tax credit enhancements as they do help working class people afford health insurance coverage. So the next step for the White House is to get Senator Manchin back to the negotiating table. And here at Access Health, we're doing all that we can to support these efforts, and we've provided Connecticut-specific information to Representative Courtney, who's actually attending a hearing this morning for the House Education and Workforce Committee about the progress that has been made through the ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act, in expanding access to affordable health coverage and the need to make these changes permanent. This is part of Congress's work on broader budget negotiations as well. We stress the importance of continuing the enhanced subsidies and the impact to consumers if they're not extended into 2023 and beyond. And we've also shared this information with other members of our Connecticut delegation, and we're joined in this effort by the other state-based marketplaces, as well as the National Academy of State Health Policy, NASHP, who we work with very closely in these efforts. So next, touching on enrollment in the ACA marketplaces. So Rob gave us a wonderful update on increases in our enrollment here in Connecticut, and HHS recently released figures about enrollment in the marketplaces across the country, which stood at 14.5 million at the end of the open enrollment period for plan year 2022. And that breaks down into approximately 10.3 million in the federally facilitated marketplaces and 4.2 million in the state-based marketplaces. And overall, this is about a 2.5 million people increase in open enrollment from plan year 2021. So this is all very good news. Another important item is updated guidelines that have been released for preventative services. As you know, the ACA provides consumers with access to preventative care with no cost sharing. In January, HHS and the Health Resources and Services Administration released updated guidelines for preventative care and screening for women and children starting in 2023. These updated guidelines for women include breastfeeding services and supplies, contraceptives, screening for HIV, counseling for sexually transmitted infections, and obesity prevention for women ages 40 to 60. The focus of the updated guidelines for children include many updates for mental health, which, as we know, is very important and has become even more important in recent years. Suicide prevention and screening for children ages 12 to 21, behavior and social and emotional screenings for children of all ages, new risk assessments for cardiac arrest and death for children ages 11 to 21, and new risk assessment for hepatitis B for children of all ages. So this is very important. And finally, the last item is new funding to support enrollment in Medicaid and CHIP for children. In late January, HHS committed $49.4 million in funding for organizations to reach low-income children and their families to increase the enrollment of children in Medicaid and CHIP. The goal of this funding initiative is to reach the 2.3 million uninsured children in this country who are eligible for Medicaid and CHIP but not enrolled. There are disproportionately high rates of uninsured children among American Indian, Alaska Native children, Hispanic children, and non-Hispanic Black children. Accordingly, this effort is especially important in advancing health equity, which is also a major focus for us here at Access Health Connecticut. The grants will be for up to $1.5 million for each selected entity over a 3-year period. And Access Health CT is reviewing the grant announcement and considering how it might partner with other organizations and use our knowledge of where the uninsured populations are located in Connecticut to help reach these eligible but uninsured children and their families. And this ties in with a lot of what we've been talking about here, you know, how we're doing to reach the uninsured and to get them enrolled in programs that they're eligible for, which could be Medicaid and CHIP, Covered Connecticut, you know, QHP, there's a whole range. So that is it for my update. If anyone has any questions.
Thanks, Susan. Questions?
Mr. Chairman, it's Ted, if I may.
Please.
Good, thanks. Thanks so much for a good update, Susan. I just wanted to raise for the board's attention the litigation. There's 2 important healthcare litigations going on. St. Francis Hospital sued Hartford Healthcare, in federal court recently. And then even more interesting, perhaps, to our board, and Susan, I wanted to get your reaction, was the case that was just filed. Well, actually, it was lodged in state court on Valentine's Day, and the plaintiffs are health insurance customers, right? And they name them. There's a number of Connecticut customers. It doesn't say whether they're our mutual clients, as well, if they're Access Health folks. But the interesting thing is that the theory of the case is that their insurance premiums are too high because of anti-competitive practices by Hartford Healthcare. And I was wondering if this is something that Access Health needs to stay on top of, or if there's any implications for us.
Yes, Ted, I was actually just reading about the case today too, and they were also talking about tying in the quality of the services that they were receiving through Hartford Healthcare. So we'll follow that closely and see if there are any implications, or if there's anything we might be interested in doing regarding that litigation.
Great, because I mean, literally, it might be some of our clients engaging in this, as plaintiffs, and certainly they'd be covered in the class. This is a class action type of suit.
Right. They'll have to get the class certified, but yes.
Any other questions for Susan? Susan, I've got one. The 14.5 million QHP.
Mm-hmm.
That's got to be a high watermark, right, for the ACA?
I think so. I know it's an increase from 2021. I'll have to go back and look at data and see if it's the highest. I know we experienced our highest year in 2016, which I believe may have also been the highest year across the country. So I'll have to take that back, Paul. I don't remember exactly what the whole country's numbers were in 2016. But that was a really high watermark year, so I don't know how it compares to 2022.
Okay.
I want to say that 2016, the nation was over 16 million, so we might not quite be back.
Right. So it's a little lower, but yeah, and we had about 116 that year, which I think is our highest ever, Rob, right?
That is correct.
Okay. So now I'm going to turn this back over to James for future agenda items.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Very quickly, in the near future, working with the strategy committee, Steve Hernandez in his committee, we are going to be continue to look at the evolution of a subsidiary, potentially providing some additional revenue streams to Access Health. Paul, we have initiative that we're working through that you might be very interested in. So we'll share that with you with the committee in the upcoming months. Also, Broker Academy will be coming up, and I mentioned the budget coming up in April, and as well as our mission and vision and guiding principles that we are developing as well. And then all of this will be going through the strategy committee and ultimately with the board. I do want to extend my appreciation to Paul, because maybe about 7-8 months ago, Paul suggested that we look at our founding principles and mission and vision, because they were created back in 2012, and we are a different organization now than we were back then. So we have been going through that and working with through the strategy committee to update all of those documents and to reflect where we are today, and more importantly, where we want to go going forward. So more to come on that. Again, the strategy committee is going to meet next month. Then we'll come back to the board with anything that comes out of those meetings. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Questions for James?
Yes, sir.
Any questions or comments for the good of the order? There being none, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Moved by Vicky.
Second by Ted.
Thank you. Marson? Morrison, can you take the roll?
Yes, sorry, my headset was not properly installed. Charles Klippel. Paul Philpott,
Yes.
Claudio Gualtieri,
Yes.
Dietrich Gifford, Frank Ritter,
Yes.
Steven Hernandez,
Yes.
Peter Doolittle. Doolittle.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. CC Woods. Woods. Thomas McNeil,
Yes.
Victoria Veltri,
Yes.
and Matthew Brockman.
Yes.
Thank you.
The motion carries. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Take care.
Good
Yep.
one,
Bye.
everybody.